Every day, something dramatic happens in the Caribbean that affects our lives. We'll give you the details. We'll give you the facts on Caribbean Perspective with Eddie Frederick. Host Eddie Frederick.
So glad you can join us. A Barbadian elected MP arrested and charged with rape. This story takes the lead in today's edition of Caribbean Perspective for Wednesday, 26 October 2022. Details when we return.
The hurricane season is now upon us, so we as Caribbean people need to remember to think safety and be prepared. Avoid venturing outside during a storm or hurricane, especially if there are strong winds. Rooftops and other debris are often blown about and can cause great damage.
Welcome back. The Barbadian sitting Member of Parliament charged with the offence of rape appeared in a magistrate's court in Oistins, where he was granted $10,000 bail. More in this report.
Deputy Speaker of the House and Member of Parliament for St. Michael Northwest, Neil Rowe, has been granted $10,000 bail. That was the outcome when he appeared in the Oistins Magistrates Court this morning to answer the charge of rape. Shortly after 9:30, 43-year-old Rowe arrived in a police vehicle. He hid his face with a scarf as he was ushered into the courthouse by 3 police officers under the watchful eye of supporters and other onlookers. Mr. Rowe stood quietly in the dock as Magistrate Deirdre McKenna read the charge that on September 18th, he had sexual intercourse knowing that the complainant did not consent or was reckless as to whether she consented. He was not required to plead to the indictable offence. The MP is represented by King's Counsel Roger Ford and Attorney-at-Law Sophia Moore. Prosecutor, Acting Inspector Peter Barrow, did not object to bail, but asked for conditions to be imposed. The magistrate imposed 2 conditions: that Mr. Rowe stay away from the complainant and that he not message her via social media or otherwise. On the outside, his attorney, Mr. Ford, expressed concern the complainant's report to police was shared on social media. He also questioned the timing of the leak.
A report was made to the police on the 24th, I think, of September. And a few weeks or a few days prior to a particular event, which I do not want to name, there was much circulation. And the circulation of statements made by the complainant. Apparently they were copied from the police diary and placed on the internet. We all have seen them. What has happened, I'm very concerned that ladies now will have little or no confidence in the police force. That every report you make to the police, it will be on social media. Those who are responsible should be brought to justice.
Mr. Rowe is expected to return to court on January 30th. Sharika Griffith, CBC News.
The Right Reverend Leish Boyd notes with concern the recent increase in crime in the Bahamas in his homily at the 119th Synod of the Anglican Diocese.
With over 100 murders recorded in the country for the year, a local leading religious figure is expressing outrage over the increasing rate of crime in the country. Bishop of the Anglican Diocese of the Bahamas and the Turks and Caicos Islands, the Right Reverend Leish Boyd, addressing the escalating state of crime at the 119th Anglican Synod at Christ Church Cathedral.
We note with concern the recent increase in crime, murder in particular, in both the Turks and Caicos Islands and in the Bahamas. In the Turks and Caicos Islands on October 2nd, there was that awful incident leaving 3 dead and 5 wounded. The territory has had 27 murders to date, compared to 14 in the same period last year. Here in the Bahamas, we are at the staggering number of 108 murders to date, with brazen gang-related assaults and killings in homes, schools, businesses, and on public jitneys.
Bishop Boyd says while the issue of crime remains distressing and frightening, citizens must not panic Exercise caution and vigilance in their daily movements.
Stay away from hot button areas and from bad company. We cannot simply move around as we please. We have to be more careful. Do not cloak your relatives and friends or even your children in shady business. If it is not honest, stay far from it. Support the police. Do what is right. We cannot do wrong and expect for our two countries to progress.
Over in Haiti, the General Hospital in Port-au-Prince is facing a shortage of oxygen as a result of the gang-influenced fuel blockade, with fears of the worst for patients whose lives depend on it. More in this HGP Nightly Regional News item with Tamika Rodney.
According to the hospital officials, the institution's oxygen supplier has warned that it will soon be unable to supply oxygen as essential production equipment is blocked. The hospital still has a maximum reserve of 1 to 2 weeks for the survival of its patient. Other hospitals are also affected by the lack of oxygen, but this has been attributed to the lack of fuel. However, the situation at private hospital is different. Criminal gangs have been blocking access to the main fuel terminal in the capital, Port-au-Prince, bringing critical services to stand still as Haiti grapples with the widening cholera epidemic amid political and economic meltdown. The UN said catastrophic levels of hunger have been recorded this month for the first time in the gang-controlled neighborhoods, and 4.7 million people are facing acute hunger, with many losing access to jobs, markets, health, and nutrition services.
You're listening to Caribbean Perspective with Eddie Frederick. Britain has its first man of colour as its Prime Minister. Interestingly, he is of Indian descent, which makes for an interesting turn of events for the greatest European colonizers of all times. More in this TV6 report with Alicia Boucher.
Rishi Sunak, the son of Indian immigrants, is set to make history as the UK's first Prime Minister of Indian descent after winning the leadership contest for the Conservative Party. Professor Brinsley Samaru is giving his view.
It just shows that the empire is coming home to roost, because the British ruled over India for more than 300 years, and Rishi Sunak's parents were part of British India. And I think that is quite a revolutionary step, quite a different take on British politics.
Professor Samaru is expressing confidence in Sunak to perform in the prime ministerial position.
I've read his CV and so on. He's really very competent, and he was a very good minister in Boris Johnson's cabinet, and I think he'll be a very good prime minister.
The historian doesn't believe that the news which broke as Hindus in TNT celebrated Diwali has particular significance because of that fact.
I think by and large people are far more concerned right now about Diwali, and if you look at the television and you listen to the radio, there's no end of all kinds of Diwali celebrations.
While Professor Samaru doesn't believe the developments in British politics, such as the rapid change in prime ministers, would have any bearing on TNT's politics, he says the UK's economic climate is something to keep an eye on.
Sunak or no Sunak, I think the British economy is taking a good beating at this time, and there might be some fall off in Trinidad in that there might be a slowing down of British investments and so on.
Alicia Boucher, TV6 News.
Trinidad and Tobago's Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley is extending best wishes to the Hindu community while calling on all citizens to use Diwali to bring light into their lives. Alicia Boucher again of TV6 News has that report.
According to Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley, the significance of Diwali is not only for the Hindu community, but instead should hold true to every individual in this country. In his address to the nation on Sunday night, Dr. Rowley said, quote, "Let us all observe the lighting of diyas. In fact, the entire festival of Diwali as a reigniting of that light which resides in every human being, giving true meaning to the nature and essence of our world and the divine." Unquote. The Prime Minister said humans are God's creation, and in every being there is an aptitude for truth, peace, wisdom, happiness, and an ability to unite with God. Dr. Rowley is appealing to Trinbagonians to use observances like Diwali to deepen the ties the country celebrates among its diverse population. He said the present climate is one of cynicism and bad weather, with a blame game taking place on a global level over events such as the COVID-19 pandemic or Russia's war on Ukraine. He also cited reports that there are protests occurring in 90 countries presently, where lives are being lost, and there are threats of economic and political collapse. The Prime Minister said, quote, "Here at home, we have our own struggles. I assure you, however, that your government continues working towards ensuring an equitable sharing of the national pie. We must be mindful that we, in Trinidad and Tobago, have the opportunity to be different as we aspire to a new calling of charity, unity, and brotherhood. My appeal to every citizen of this nation today is to please, even in these most difficult times, endeavor to bring light into your lives. Then we will all see the real meaning and essence of our world and God's divinity as lit by the humble dias." Unquote. Alicia Boucher, TV6 News.
Trinidad and Tobago's Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley is hailing a decision by the government in 1993 to merge 3 indigenous banks towards saving the banking sector in the country. Dr. Rowley spoke during the opening of the Milford Road branch of First Citizens Bank in Tobago. More from TV6's Elizabeth Williams.
Finance Minister Wendell Motley had to take the decision with the Cabinet to merge Workers' Bank and NCB and what you call the Penny Bank. Incidentally, the Penny Bank was strong, had no problem. But NCB and Workers' Bank were on the verge of collapse. We brought the 3 of them together, and I think, if my memory serves me right, it cost $330 million at the time to bring those institutions together, and thus was born FCB.
Dr. Rowley said the decision taken by the government was questioned by many, but today, FCB's presence in the country is an indication of what can be achieved with boundless faith in our destiny.
Today, it is with a great sense of pride, pleasure, and satisfaction that I could say to my friend and colleague, Chief Secretary, the balance sheet of the FCB born under those circumstances is today slightly under 50 billion Trinidad and Tobago dollars.
Chief Secretary Farley Augustine, who was in attendance during his brief remarks, stated FCB continues to balance a strong indigenous identity while aiming to be first class.
Today marks another monumental step forward for citizens and, of course, for the people of Tobago, which will further improve our island's business environment.
Elizabeth Williams, TV6 News.
Hubbard's is once again innovating the way you shop with its new online store, providing 24-hour shopping convenience. You can shop now for appliances, hardware, houseware, building material, and more. Free delivery island-wide. Start shopping now at hubbardshardware.gd. Safe, convenient, reliable.
I am Eddie Frederick. This has been Caribbean Perspective, a whole new approach to highlighting developments in the Caribbean. In the meantime, please continue to log on to CaribbeanPerspective.com for more daily news and more.